Hi, I'm Jen from House One, and today I'm sharing a simple dust collection setup as a part of my mobile workbench project series. In part one of this series, I show how I created the shell of a 4x8 mobile workbench. In today's video, I'm going to be adding a simple dust collection system to attach to my table saw inside the workbench. Because my mobile workbench is in the center of my workshop, it's difficult to connect it to a main dust collection system. For that reason, I'm installing a very simple dust collection system right inside the workbench. Now, it's important to note that all dust collection systems are going to look very different based on your needs and your budget. To plan my setup, I first made a layout of my design so that I could start thinking about what fittings and hose I needed. My setup consists of a shop vac with 2 branches, controlled by blast gates. One that's accessible for use with a tool like a sander, and another that's connected to my table saw, which has a main vac port and a smaller dust collection port on the blade guard. It's also important to note that as you buy the fittings, you want to purchase from the same retailer or really expect some trial and error, as most retailers that sell, say, 2.5-inch fittings have a slight variation on their sizing. Some measure the inside diameter and some measure the outside diameter. Since my shop vac has a bag and I don't want to be changing it all the time, I'm also adding a dust separator to catch the majority of my sawdust in a bucket before it reaches my shop vac so I can dump it more easily. And while this diagram looks really stretched out, I'm going to be keeping my runs as short as possible to create as much suction as possible, since I really am only using a shop vac. Working my way from the table saw, I first cut a section of 2.5-inch flexible hose. I slid hose clamps on each end and then used it to connect the reducer that will fit onto the main dust collection port on my table saw and onto the Y fitting, which will run a hose up to the dust collection port on the blade guard. Next, I used a flexible coupling with hose clamps to attach the Y fitting to a blast gate. Now I can attach another Y fitting with another blast gate to create the second branch. And finish by cutting another section of 2.5-inch hose and then using hose clamps to connect the Y fitting to the dust separator. So now I've connected my vac to a dust separator, followed by a flexible hose and a Y fitting with 2 blast gates that allow me to open a line for a small tool like a sander or a branch to my table saw, which has another Y fitting that branches to my saw's main dust collection port and up to a smaller dust collection port on my blade guard. Let's get it installed in the cabinet and take one more look. First, I'll attach it to the table saw and then to the dust collection port. One blast gate has a stabilizer that I can mount inside the cabinet to hold everything in place. Having the blast gates at the back of the cabinet is not ideal, but I would rather have the shorter lengths of hose, so I opted to keep it here. Now that I've created all of my connections, it's time to automate the vacuum power with a special plug. This plug allows my table saw to trigger my vacuum automatically when it's turned on, and runs for a bit after my saw shuts down to clear any remaining sawdust. Alternatively, I can hit the switch to turn on my vacuum manually when I'm using the branch that's not connected to the table saw. I know there's a lot of moving parts, but I hope this video gave you some ideas about how to set up your own small dust collection system. To see the other customizations that I made to this workbench, including the power tool storage, easy DIY drawers, downdraft sanding station, and clamp rack, visit the House One channel on thisoldhouse.com. I'm Jenn Largesse. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. This Old House has got a video for just about every home improvement project, so be sure to check out the others. And if you like what you see, click on the subscribe button to make sure that you get our newest videos right in your feed.